When I was a child, I would cry every time I met a stranger. Here are some things that helped me to overcome that social anxiety. I wanted to make this video to help both adults who are struggling with social anxiety, but also to help parents who had a child that is struggling with social anxiety and a lot of fear in social situations. And when I say social anxiety, that can mean a lot of things. Some people have social anxiety where they can't even leave the house. And I did not have social anxiety that severe. And so I don't want to pretend like my experience translates to that. But I'll be focusing on those social situations, and it goes beyond just the social anxiety that we feel when we're giving a speech or other types of presentation anxiety, right? So, like I said, I was a child that would cry when I met strangers. And more than that, even when I had acquaintances, I didn't want to speak with them around them. I would hide behind my mother. And this went on for a good chunk of my childhood. And even when I was older and could hide it a little bit better, I still had significant fear around social situations. And luckily, I had parents that could support me and help me and challenge me. And I also was able to develop skills and gain some support as an adult. So that's what I want to talk about today. First of all, the thing that really is important when you're dealing with social anxiety in a child or as an adult is to accept that that is a reality for yourself or for your child. When I was a child, my mom would use the word shy to describe me. If I had trouble speaking to somebody, if I was acting strange around new people, she would say, "Hey, don't worry about it. She's just a little shy sometimes." And that really helped me to have that label. In fact, when I would go to school, I would always did an orientation before we started the school year and meet the teacher. And I was really grateful that my mom would explain to my teacher. I would be standing right there and I could hear her explaining, "Hey, Brianna's shy. So just be careful when you're calling on her without her raising her hand, and that when she's in new situations, she might get nervous." That helped me know that my teacher wasn't going to expect things out of me that I couldn't do or that I wasn't ready for. As an adult, similarly, having the label of social anxiety is really freeing. So I for one tell people that I have social anxiety, especially when I'm in periods where I'm just having a lot of it. I will say, "Hey, I know I didn't text you back, but I do get these bouts of social anxiety." And also, just so you know, I know that last week I was super friendly to you, and then this week I may have acted like I barely knew you, and that's all due to my social anxiety. And as I've told people this, first of all, I think they love that level of vulnerability to be able to share that with them, and it sets expectations for my relationships. People don't get upset with me for not being responsive. They don't get upset because they think I rubbed them the wrong way or I was trying to be mean or snuff them. They understand, oh yeah, sometimes she just gets that anxiety, and they are very cool with it. And so it helps manage those expectations. It helps us to accept that part of our identity, if you like to consider this an identity characteristic. Once you've labeled it, once you have a name for it, once you understand the thing that you're feeling, the second thing that is really important is being able to expose yourself to social situations. And this has to be done in baby steps. So I think it's easy to say, I have these big goals. I want to be able to jump into a book club, or I want to be able to join a sports team. And those are really overwhelming goals if you don't have the baby steps to get you to those social situations. Similarly with children, trying to force them to go to a birthday party they don't want to go to, or trying to push them to talk to adults they've never met before, may backfire on you if you don't have a plan in place and you haven't given them the steps to get to those bigger interactions. So what I would suggest in terms of children is that you start with baby steps like, "I'm going to leave you in this social situation for 5 minutes and you'll be able to see me, but I want you to stay there and participate in that activity. And once the 5 minutes up, I'll come back and get you." Or it could look like, "Hey, I want you to go meet a new friend at school today. All you have to do is say hi. How are you?" You could also suggest something like, at a dinner party, having the child sit by an adult they don't know. And all of these situations are really helpful, but they will never work if you do not go in prepared for those situations. So if you put this child in a situation where they're going to be away from you, you can give them resources so that they can have comfort and know what's going on. You can give them a watch that tells them how long that 5 minutes is. You can explain to them what the activity is going to be, what the expectations are for the activity. If there's a game, you can explain the rules. Those are all really important things. If you are putting them in a situation where you're asking them to make a conversation with friends, give them a script. I cannot tell you how important a script is when you have anxiety. Because when I am in the midst of anxiety of a social situation, I cannot remember one thing about myself. I cannot remember any question I have ever asked or has been asked in my life. And so for me, it's really important to know the script. Hello, my name is blah, blah, blah. How are you doing? What are some things that you like to do? Do you like to play games? What games do you like to play? Do you have a favorite color? Questions that are kids appropriate, of course, and provide these for the child. And if you put them in a situation where they're with a new adult that they've never met before, tell them about that adult. Explain who that adult is. Hey, we're going to go to my friend Sally's house. You know, she has a lot of dogs. She really loves dogs. And she told me that she loves chatting with little 10-year-old girls who also love dogs. You know, you may be afraid to talk to her, but I think she would just love to see your smile. Those kind of things can just lessen the pressure just a little bit, so social situations are less unbearable. And if you're an adult, you're not going to have the coach of a parent, and so you're going to have to be able to coach yourself in a lot of ways. And you can do that with the same techniques. As you make these goals for yourself as an adult for social situations that you want to approach, and make sure you keep them bite-sized, make sure you keep them small. And that could be, I'm gonna call a friend on the phone, or make a doctor's appointment. I'm gonna go to a social event that I was invited to. I'm gonna get to know somebody on campus I've never met before. All of those things you can do, and you can break them into bite-sized steps and give yourself scripts. Make sure you think about the questions that you're gonna ask. Make sure that you learn about the situation. One of my biggest triggers is going to an event and not knowing what the appropriate dress is. It is something that I can't do. And I will not go to an event if I don't know what the appropriate attire is. Is it going to be casual? Is it going to be a more formal situation? I need to know. And I will make sure that I know that, because that lessens the anxiety right off the bat. If I know I'm going to enter a social situation, I'm not going to be dressed wrong, I'm not going to stand out. This has worked for me. When I was in college, I had no friends after several months, and I was so frustrated because I really, really wanted friends. And one of the places I knew I could make friends was at church. And I attended a church that was about 30 minutes away from my campus. And what's important about this is that I needed a ride there. I did not have a vehicle. So I met some people who could give me rides, but I would take hours and hours and hours to text for these rides. It was so stressful for me. And when I got a response, I would feel really nervous. Even then, I would get rides and I would sit in this car, this generous person's car, and I couldn't even speak. It was a 30-minute drive, and I would run out of conversation topics in about 2 minutes. So I knew something needed to change. And so I started to make a plan for myself, and I started with baby steps. I started with making conversation starters to prepare for when I had these car rides. I started making goals to say hello to one person at church, to meet people and to make friends and to connect with people. And what I found over time was all of a sudden I was capable of things I could have never imagined. And something that was helpful for me during this time as I made these goals was to use prayer, to use meditation, to really focus on these goals. And so that I could see within myself the things that I was struggling with and face those things. And to remind myself daily, these are my goals. These are my goals. I think if that prayer and meditation is something that's part of your routine, you'll find that it will help you keep those goals in front of mind and help you focus in a way that you can manage them. Luckily, I have had access to therapy throughout my life, and I will say there was a time in my life that I was having panic attacks in social situations, and getting very overwhelmed by a very specific aspect of social situations, which I'm not going to necessarily go into details about now. And therapy helped me work through those feelings and those thoughts as well. And so, if you have access to therapy, I would definitely recommend that as an adult. For a child, therapy might be useful as well. But for me, going to a therapist when I was a child was also triggering of my social anxiety. And so, it wasn't something that was really that beneficial for me. The main message I want to get out of this video is that if you struggle with social anxiety or you have a child that struggles with social anxiety, there is hope. There is a life where you can be confident and you can feel good going into social situations most of the time. I know that a lot of people, when they met me when I was 5 or 10 or 15, would not have imagined the life that I have, where I could be married, have kids, and be a practicing lawyer, where I'm able to make arguments in court, where I'm able to interact with clients in a normal and healthy way. And so these things will come and it just takes time. So if you like this content, go ahead and give me a thumbs up so I know to make it in the future. I'm happy to tell more about my journey with social anxiety. And if you like my face, go ahead and subscribe. I'll see you next time.